What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. And I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome to Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, brought to you by the Shepherd's Flock International Church. Last week, we hosted Dr. Carlos Garcia of Utopia Wellness Center in Florida, USA. And he was kind enough to grant us yet another opportunity today to continue to explore alternative and integrative medicine, particularly as it is practiced at Utopia. Last week, we delved into chelation therapy. We talked about the emotional connection with cancer. We looked at what happens when a patient walks into Utopia, someone who is well and wants to maintain wellness, and someone who is sick and wants to get well. Then we touched on cancer, and there was something that Dr. Garcia said last week regarding cancer, particularly its relationship with dentistry, or dental health, I should say. Now, today I want to start him out from that angle. You mentioned the connection between dental health and many other ailments in the body, in the head, in the throat, even the thyroid, and as well as cancer. You particularly mentioned people with root canal procedure. I want us to start from that angle. Would you like to share your thoughts with our viewers regarding the interconnection between dental health on the one hand and various conditions, whether it is brain tumor or thyroid problems or tinnitus or any other condition for that matter, and root canal in particular? Thank you. Doc, over to you.
Well, thank you again, Pastor Tony. It's always a pleasure seeing you. I'm telling you, I think you look younger than last week. I don't know how you do it. I think people should go to you, not me.
Thank you.
So, a very important aspect of medicine is your teeth. Yes, I went to medical school, not to dental school. So what am I doing talking about teeth? Mm-hmm. The biggest problem I think all practitioners and just about all people have is that they don't look at teeth as organs. So let's look at a tooth, for example. A tooth has a blood supply. Mm-hmm. A tooth has a nerve system. And so therefore, blood is constantly going in. It has an arterial supply and it has a venous system. And so when you do a root canal procedure on a tooth, you drill through the enamel, then the dentin, and you basically eliminate the core. Now, if you go to either of the websites, either utopiawellness.com or utopiacancercenter.com, there is a video that's about 6.5 minutes long that shows you what I'm talking about in detail in a very simple manner, because it's all graphic so that you can follow it. But when you think about it, it takes, for example, the liver, okay, or the kidneys. The kidneys have a blood supply, they have an arterial system, they have a venous system, and they have a nervous system.
Right.
Your brain communicates with the kidneys, tells it too much water, not enough water, so that the kidneys can function. The same thing with the liver. Get rid of this, keep that. So when you have a blood supply that's functioning and a nervous system that works, the organ is viable. It seems to be working. It has all the components necessary to work well. Well, how does that differ from what I just said about a tooth? So a tooth has a blood supply and arterial system, a venous system, and a nervous system. Organs that we all agree are organs, like liver, have a arterial system, a venous system, and a nervous system. They're identical. They
Right.
both produce a function. Teeth are mastication or chewing. You have different teeth that do different functions. So you've got the front teeth that allows you, say, to bite into an apple. And then you've got your molars that crush the apple. Well, when you look at the kidneys, for example, you've got different kidney cells doing different functions.
Mm-hmm.
So each organ has different cells that specialize in a function that is there to allow that organ to perform its duty to maintain our body. Well, the teeth do the same thing. Our mouth, if you want to look at it that way, the teeth are part of the mouth. We have salivary glands that bring in saliva and starts the digestive process.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole aspect of our teeth is to be able to take food in its raw form and begin the conversion of that apple into a substance that we can extract the nutrients for our cellular benefit. And in order to have that happen, the teeth are the beginning aspects of it, or should I say the mouth is the beginning aspect of which the teeth are part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people, when you ask them, well, what's a tooth? They say, oh, it's a tooth. They don't really take the time to break it down into the components. Teeth, all our 32 teeth should be looked at as 32 different organs. Now, let me go into my, if you go to your favorite search engine, you can download a document like this, which will show you how your teeth are associated with your organs. Now, I apologize to the viewing that this is laminated and may have some light reflecting from it. That was not my intent. But my point being is that you have to start looking at medicine not as property. In other words, pharmaceutical or Western medicine is better than Eastern medicine. You have to start looking at it as everything complements everything. If I break an arm, I am not going to go see my herbalist. I'm going to go see my orthopedic friend.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to cast my arm. I want him to splint it, put rods, whatever it needs to be done so that it can facilitate the healing process.
Right.
That's what I need. That's what I'm going to go to. On the other hand, if I have an emotional issue, taking a drug to space out is not going to deal with the problem. Speaking to somebody and explaining and getting perspectives is what's going to salvage that individual from that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to our health, the teeth are very, very integral. Now, look at the anatomy. All our teeth has, every organ and every structure has a lymphatic system. So we have the arterial system, we have the venous system, and we have the lymphatic system. The arterial system brings in blood and nutrients. The venous system takes away the waste. Think of each one of our cells as a home. You buy groceries, you make food, you also produce waste. The garbage men come and they take the waste away. Well, the garbage department is the venous system and the lymphatic system. The venous system is about 97, 98% effective. And the lymphatic system takes away the other 2%. So people say, well, come on, doc, 97%. I mean, what are you, crazy? Are you perfectionist? I am sure that many people have seen women that have a very large arm after a mastectomy.
Mm-hmm.
When you take the lymphatic structures, when you destroy the lymphatic system from the axilla, then you potentially cause that lymphangitis, that retention of that 3% that people think is insignificant, over time becomes very, very significant, regrettably, in some patients, not all.
Lymphedema.
Exactly. So the lymphatic system is crucial to maintaining a well-functioning body. And that's why the lymphatic system is important. Now, each one of our teeth has access to the central circulatory system. Our teeth do not live in a vacuum. If you look, again, go to the root canal video that I did, it'll show you how at the root of each tooth, you have access to the circulatory system of our entire body. And so you start putting the pieces together. If the teeth are contaminated and producing toxins over time, that will debilitate your immune system. One of the biggest questions, or one of the most frequent questions that I'm asked is, well, doc, I've had this root canal for 20 years, 30 years, 15 years, 5 years. Why now? Because our bodies, like any other structure, has a finite capacity to deal with insults. Insult is used in this term as anything that attacks us. A cold is an insult, for example. So if you have a cavity, that's an insult. So when you destroy the blood supply and the nerve supply, you cause that tooth to die. So imagine that I were to do an operation on a child and I were to remove the blood supply from the appendix, but leave it inside the child. The appendix would foster, would become infected, and that could potentially kill the child.
Right.
Now, everybody agrees when I talk about an appendix or say a gallbladder. But when I talk about that in the same terms as a tooth, it doesn't compute because they don't see teeth as an appendage like an appendix or an appendage such as the gallbladder.
Right.
And so when the tooth becomes infected because it doesn't have a blood supply, the toxins still have access to the central circulatory system. And so our body notices that there's toxemia being produced by the teeth. That toxemia will get into the lymphatic chain. And you will see a lot of people who have thyroid issues, if it comes from the mouth, that they'll talk about that the lymphatic chain in the neck has also acted up before they were diagnosed with thyroid issues. And so the lymphatic system is trying to remove or dilute the toxins so that the body can further dilute them and get rid of them, eliminate them, so that the body should detoxify. And in part of that process, it sends some of the immune system to protect us from that gangrenous organ. When you eliminate a blood supply and a nerve supply to an organ, but especially the blood supply, that organ becomes gangrenous. If you look at teeth as organs, when you do the root canal tooth or root canal filling procedure, you are deliberately creating a gangrenous organ in the mouth and leaving it in a perfectly healthy jaw. Again, it is as if I were to ligate or to cut off the circulation to an appendix and leave it inside the patient to fester. And that's what the dentist does when it does the root canal filling procedure. And so it has access. And so what are the organs? 85% of the people who have tongue cancers, tonsillar cancers, salivary gland cancers, issues with their ears, ringing in their ears, vertigo, people who have primary brain tumors have issues with their teeth. Now, it just is not limited to root canals. When a dentist extracts a wisdom teeth or tooth from your mouth, if the ligament is left behind, it can become a site for an abscess. Again, compromising the integrity of the immune response.
Right.
Because our immune response is like a pie. It's limited. It's powerful, no argument, but it's not infinite. It's limited. And if my immune system is going to protect me from, say, 5 root canals in my mouth, then I'm going to allocate on a regular basis. That is to say, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days. My immune system is going to be defending me from that area that's producing toxins to keep me healthy, because that's what the immune response is supposed to do, keep me healthy. And so by the same token, because I don't have the army that I have is now diverse, it's being spread out. Now I have less troops to protect me from other diseases. I now become susceptible to other diseases.
Right.
Now you add on top of that emotional trauma, right? Now your immune system is further diminished because you need a healthy emotional system to keep the body functioning well. This is crucial. And it's not taught in medical school. They'll talk to you about schizophrenia, but they won't talk about how what you think functions and how it affects your body, because your body does what this supercomputer tells it to do, consciously or subconsciously. So when you look at that area, the areas that are going to be most exposed to those toxins are the area in my mouth. That's why it's very common to see it with tongue cancers, tonsillar cancers, salivary gland cancers, because those organs in my mouth, they're the ones who are getting the most amount of toxemia. And in order for it to be toxic, that means that there has to be acidity. And organs don't work well when they're acidic. Your immune system doesn't work well when it's acidic. And so when you kill the blood supply and the nerve supply and create a gangrenous environment, you're creating acidity, which further diminishes my ability to heal. And so this is why we work here at Utopia with an integrated dental practitioner who, after having spoken with and explained this to, understands why root canal filled teeth are not good for people and why abscesses have to be drained so that they can heal. In other words, why having pathology here is bad for the entire body. And again, let's go back to the way we've been trained. We have been trained that if it doesn't hurt, ignore it.
If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Right. However, your car isn't broken, but you're going to prevent the breakdown. What I'm saying is you should have a cone CT of your mouth at least once every 2 or 3 years to make sure that there's no new pathology in your teeth. It's important that you look after your teeth because you're going to control your entire, it's going to affect every part of our bodies. Again, if people download a tooth organ relationship chart, such as this one, that you can find on any search engine, you'll begin to understand how your teeth and your body begin to interact. And if you want to get well, you have to look at all the aspects. So when I opened Utopia, I quickly learned that I had to allow myself to be wrong. Now, most people, when I tell them this, say, why do you want to be wrong? You're a doctor. You want to be right. If I allow myself to be wrong, then I also afford myself the ability to be thorough. In order to be thorough, I have to allow myself to be wrong. So if you come to me, you've got a pretty smile. I've seen it. You know, you look out there and boy, oh boy, you know, it's like everyone wants your smile. I do.
Thank you.
So you come to me as a patient, I'm going to say, you know, Pastor Tony, I know you have no teeth complaints. I know you've gone to a dentist. I know you take care of yourself, but allow me the opportunity to make sure that we can check it with a cone CT, a CT of your mouth that allows me to examine your mouth in depth, look at it close up without distorting the image, so that we can make sure that there's no overt pathology. So allowing myself to be wrong, affords myself the ability to be thorough. And believe me, the one thing the patients must understand is that when you come to see me, the person with skin in the game is not me, it's you. You're asking me to help you either prevent something or deal with something. And you're the one with the problem, not me. So if you're having the one with the problem, do you want me to be right? Or do you want me to be thorough? Personally, if I'm the patient, I want to be thorough. I don't want the doctor to be right, because if I want to be right, then I'm not going to check things that I'm not sure about.
Yeah, so true. Thank you so very much, Doc. You've spoken extensively on many very important issues that are often overlooked. You talked about heavy metal toxicity, which we don't get to talk about quite often when we go to our regular doctors. You've talked about the emotional component to disease and to pathologies. Again, we don't get to talk about that often with our doctors when we go for doctor visits. Now you brought another dimension, which is dental health and how it connects to the entire body and can be one of the contributing factors to the initiation of disease and progression of disease in different parts of the body. Again, I'm not sure I've ever seen any doctor who has connected that, a conventional doctor that is. Of course, some of our integrative practitioners and naturopathic doctors have spoken to me along these same lines in the past. But I'm talking about a regular doctor visit. You never get to talk about dental health with whatever it is that you brought as a complaint to your doctor. But you've helped to highlight all of this, and we truly appreciate that. We're going to go on the break at this point. And when we come back, I'd like you to speak to, imagine an imaginary patient in front of you, and you've highlighted all of these things you've highlighted about dental health. Maybe that patient has dental amalgam in the mouth, or maybe a root canal procedure in the mouth, or some other dental procedure that you consider toxic to that person's body. What would you advise the individual to do if that patient were sitting in front of you? When we come back from this break, that's where we'd like to start from. Don't go away, we'll be back shortly. This has been Exposé, brought to you by the Shepherd's Flock International Church, and I'm your regular host, Tony Akinyemi. We'll be back very shortly. Welcome to 2022 and Happy New Year. This is our year of Maranatha, and Divine Impact Summit is coming up February 3 to 6, 2022. The King, Jesus Christ himself, is coming, and is coming in two fashions. First, is coming to meet you at the point of your needs, to deliver your miracles, your blessings, your signs and wonders, your healing, your deliverance, your promotion, your establishment, your increase, your enlargement. And then secondly, we are actually expecting the second coming of the King. He promised that he will come again. And all the signs around the world are clearly indicative of the fact that his coming is imminent. And when he comes, we shall see him face to face. And those who are ready and prepared for his coming will be taken up in the rapture to meet with him in the sky. It's an experience you cannot afford to miss. So during Divine Impact Summit 2022, we shall be teaching from the Word of God in all of these dimensions. So I want to especially invite you, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, to join us at the Divine Impact Summit 2022, February 3 to 6, at Ikeja, the Shepherd's Flock International Church Worshipatorium. It will be happening in person, in church. Of course, it will be streamed for those who are unable to access the venue due to distance. We hope to see you in church. We hope to see you online, whichever one applies to you. But by all means, don't miss it, because it promises to be an experience. It will be an encounter with the King, and there will be a lot of goodies delivered. Looking forward to seeing you. Shalom, mega blessings, and Maranatha. Welcome back to Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, brought to you by the Shepherd's Flock International Church. We have in the house today Dr. Carlos Garcia, the medical director of Utopia Wellness Center in Alsma, Florida, USA. And he's been opening our understanding to many aspects of integrative medicine. He talked extensively before we went on that short break on the relationship between your dental health, your oral health, and the health of the rest of your body. And before we went on that break, I asked him to speak to an imaginary patient in front of him who has any of these dental procedures, maybe mercury dental amalgam in the mouth, maybe root canal or some other procedures. What would you advise that individual to do, Doc?
Well, it's good to be back again. And what I want everyone to do after they're through listening to the program is I want everyone to go to the internet and see the procedures that are necessary to dispose of mercury. Okay. When you start looking at the requirements for offices to get rid of mercury, you have to jump through all sorts of hoops. You just don't take mercury out of somebody's mouth and put it in the garbage can. You get into trouble because it's so toxic. Toxic?
And you don't want to pollute the environment with that.
Of course not. But let's just think about it. If this material is so toxic, if this material affects the environment so terribly, why is it inside children's mouths? How does this make any sense? It doesn't.
Big question.
And so when people are wondering what I should put in my mouth or not, my answer is ask them what they're going to use and look it up. How do you dispose of it? Never mind how it's made. How do you get rid of it? If it's as simple as throw it in the garbage can, okay, fine. But when you look at mercury, there are many, many stringent guidelines on how to eliminate mercury. And so one needs to begin to ask the questions of what's going in my mouth. Now, in the past, people have accepted this because they don't think of teeth as organs. They take teeth for granted. That's, you know what? I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I don't want you to think that I know better. No. This is things I had to teach myself over the last 20 years.
Right.
So I was just as much in the dark by the system's failure as you all are. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to shed some light into giving you the tools so that you can use them on your own. Teaching you how to be independent. So before someone's going to put anything in my body, I'm going to ask them what it's a material. And unless it's a matter of life and death, I'm going to do some research as to how you get rid of it. Okay. When you take it out of my body, where does it go? Because if it has to go through a big song and dance because of the material, such as mercury, maybe I don't want it in me. So that's very important.
Right.
Because when you develop a charge, remember we talked about the fact that when you do an EKG, that machine is measuring and diagramming your electrical current in your heart. Well, when you put different metals in your mouth, that charge, the electricity, can also go from tooth to tooth. For example, people who have gold crowns, you want something that really conducts electricity well? Gold. Oh my Lord, that is a perfect conductor.
Wow.
Well, potentially, if you have two gold crowns with mercury filling in between, those two teeth can be having a charge. And what that charge does is it can degrade the mercury and release the mercury into the circulatory system, giving you the toxemia over time. So many, many people can have these problems. Fortunately, it was not a pandemic of mercury making people have nervous system problems. But again, just because things don't pan out, just because people aren't dropping like flies does not necessarily mean that it's good for you. And mercury is one of those elements that I challenge the viewers to do your own research and reach your own conclusion as to whether you want that in your mouth or in your children's mouths. So what do I do now when I have a cracked tooth? Kids play baseball, kids play sports, kids are kids. You can crack your tooth. Well, some dentists just glue them back on. If the tooth has really been fissured and it really goes down and affects the entire complex, that tooth can also die. So, and the problem here, see, the problem is that when you do a root canal fill procedure in a tooth, the tooth remains white, but it's dead inside.
Yeah.
And because it doesn't change color, we don't perceive it bad. When you look at a toe that's gangrenous, you will see that it's black. It doesn't look like the colors of the other toes.
Right.
And so we say, oh my God, that's different. So therefore, it should be removed. You see it as something that's unhealthy, but the teeth remain white. Now, a few of the times it does discolor, but by and large, it does remain white. So therefore, because it stays white, we don't perceive the urge to remove it. If your tooth needs a root canal, the tooth is dead. It needs to be extracted. If you, excuse me, if you crack your tooth, you need to remove it. Now, you can then put implants, bridges. There's a lot of different procedures you can use for cosmetic purposes. So you can fix the cosmetics, but you don't want to risk your health. At least I don't want to risk my health. That's why, when someone said, hey, the tooth, I got hit by a baseball bat as a kid, pull the tooth. Not because I wanted to have it pulled, but because the tooth was damaged beyond repair. And that's the issue. You need to be able to look at the big picture. Is your tooth worth your life? I'll give you a true story. I had a good friend of mine who was a judge who told me he had a root canal done and procedure. And I said to him, get the tooth pulled. He said, no, I'm not going to get my teeth pulled. I like my teeth. I want to keep my teeth. I'm going to, and I said, root canal filled teeth potentially cause cancers. Fast forward 6 months later, he sends me an x-ray and he's got this mass. And I said to him, that's a tumor. I said, did you take the tooth out? No. I said, for God's sakes, remove the tooth before it kills you. He traveled the country, got opinions. Eventually, he had surgery done. He had some radiation done. He came to me and he said, okay, well, I've done all these things. Now can you detoxify my body? And I said, is the tooth in? Yes. Pull it. I won't. I said, well, go away. He left. He went back to the facility that was treating him. Now his cancer had spread into his lungs and they said, you're terminal. We can't fix you. He comes back.
Too bad. Too bad.
I said, pull the tooth. No, I'm not. He's dead today.
Oh, good, glorious God.
So the question is your tooth worth your life? Your choice. It's not my life. It's not my body. It's yours. I treat people as adults. I do not treat people as children. And so therefore, because I treat you all like adults, I try to educate you 101. I try to explain to you why it's bad. I'll even sit there and argue with you why you should follow my advice. But ultimately, you get to suffer the consequences of good choices or bad choices. And so this is one of the reasons. And I began to put the puzzle together. If this can be compromised because of either abscesses, cracked teeth, incorrectly extracted teeth, root canal filled teeth, or just a history of I've always had bad teeth. then the organs closest to it are the first ones that are going to be susceptible to the toxemia.
Okay.
And medicine doesn't look at toxemia. Now, medicine understands toxins. You get bit by a rattlesnake or a mamba, they're all over it. Okay, that's a poison. They buy it. They'll try to give you anti-venom, what have you. But the idea that teeth can release toxins on a slow but regular, steady basis is not readily accepted by the vast majority of practitioners, unfortunately. So from my vantage point, I look at, when I finally realized this, that when I started looking at the people that I have seen over my last 25 years of practicing medicine, that a lot of the people who have head and neck issues have dental issues. So if it involves your head and your neck, if it involves your head, if it involves your lungs, your thyroid, involves your neck, your lymph nodes around here, have to look at your teeth. They cannot be ignored.
Right.
I'm not saying it's the only cause, but I'm saying that they should not be ignored.
A very critical factor there. Thank you very much. I read a book by the late Dr. Hal Huggins. The title of the book is Uninformed Consent. Yeah, and I think he alluded to all of these things that you have just said in that book.
I knew Hal. Hal was a nice guy, really nice fella.
Yeah. He also talked about autoimmune disorders connected to oral health. Would you like to speak to that?
Interestingly enough, the autoimmune diseases I find to be more associated with the GI tract. However, when you start looking at these organ charts, you find out that your wisdom teeth are very close to your large intestine, especially a tooth number. You look at tooth number 19, 18, and 17 are associated with that. And the same thing with 30, 31, and 32. So many of their teeth are associated with your large intestine. And many people have their wisdom teeth extracted. So as you begin to see the pathology in your teeth, you can begin to see how other organs become compromised. Now, last week we talked about the fact that I advocate colonic irrigations as a way of maintaining the body. So let's talk about the transverse colon for a second. The transverse colon is the part of the colon that goes from my right side to my left side. That's the transverse colon. So the transverse colon also makes the lymphatic fluid. So what's that all about? Well, lymphatic fluid is the lubricant that makes the oil that facilitates what I'm doing, which is to flex my joints.
Right.
And so the best analogy I can give people, let's go back to the car. You don't just change the oil, you also change the oil filter.
Right.
If you just change the oil's going to go through the dirty oil filter and become dirty quickly. Okay. So remember that we talked about the fact that there's a film that develops in everyone's transverse colon, actually the entire colon, as it's used in normal process of foods and the generation of all the nutrients that we need for absorption and so forth, because our large intestine has bacteria and other necessary entities, organisms that are necessary for the processing of foods, the generation of vitamins for our bodies, etc. Well, we have this single film that we need to remove. If we don't remove it, then what happens is the lymphatic fluid begins to carry some of those proteins. Now, the mistake that many people make is they say, well, doc, I'm like clockwork. I have breakfast, I go poop. I have lunch, I go poop. I have dinner, I go poop. I don't eat, and sometimes I just go poop. I poop all the time. My colon is clean. Wrong. Without colonic irrigations, you're not going to get that colon working well. And in fact, what will happen is that the lining inside that colon will be contaminated. It will contaminate the lymphatic fluid with proteins. And so what I noticed was that people who develop rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease, people who develop lupus, Sjogren's disease, thyroiditis, when they say you're attacking your own thyroid, most likely have a problem with the transverse colon. And colonic irrigations, I've treated, I remember a lady who had rheumatoid arthritis for God knows forever, was on a boatload of medications. And when we treated her for about 3 months, she was off of all her medication with respect to rheumatoid arthritis. So the transverse colon is very important when it comes to making the lubricant for our joints, because autoimmune disease is when the proteins go back into circulation. Our bodies then notices that there's this protein where it's not supposed to be. And then our bodies, through their immune response, goes to clean up what isn't supposed to be there. It's like what your mom did when you didn't clean up your room right. She put your toys in the right place. Well, that's what the immune system goes. It's to clean up what shouldn't be and try to clean it up to make it clean again. And in the process, it causes inflammation, which is autoimmune. So if you have autoimmune problems, that means that you have a transverse colon problem. Furthermore, if you have autoimmune disease, then your neck is a problem as well. Because there are two nervous systems in the human body. Yes, there's one brain, but there's two systems. There is the system that allows me to pick up this mouse. I wanted to do it and I put it down. That's the voluntary or sympathetic nervous system. And then there's the involuntary or the autonomic nervous system that monitors my heart, my lungs, how my intestinal tract works, my liver, and all my internal organs. Okay. Though that system comes out of cervical 1 and cervical 2. And so if you have neck trauma, if you have neck injury, car accidents, slip and falls, just trauma of any kind that affects your neck, it will affect potentially how your internal organs function. So when a person tells me that they have atrial fibrillation, they have an issue with the neck. If they say they have acid reflux, they have a problem with their neck. If they tell me that they have some sort of chronic indigestion or bladder issue, problems with their neck. Any internal organ problem, there's usually something wrong with the neck.
And how can that be solved? The neck problem, how does that get solved?
They have a specialized chiropractor called orthogonal chiropractor.
Right.
And the orthogonal chiropractor just works on the cervical neck.
Right.
And what they do is they take specialized angled x-rays to show you the displacement of cervical 1 and cervical 2. So that they can then adjust cervical 1, cervical 2 to allow the free flow of information through electrical impulses between the different organs in our bodies and our brain. And that's why you sometimes see that someone will have atrial fibrillation and then it magically goes away. It just means that the bones in the neck went back into the right place.
Right.
Or then some people they'll lose their atrial fibrillation, but they may get acid reflux. Something's wrong with the neck. So you have to also look at the neck, which is something that, again, is overlooked by mainstream medicine.
Right.
Again, why? Because they want to exclude other forms of medicine. And whether you call it mainstream medicine, Oriental medicine, Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, it's all medicine.
Right.
Okay. It's like your family members. They all have different names, but they're part of your family. And that's what I've tried to do, is bring the family together.
Right, to form an integrated system where everybody brings something to the table.
Exactly.
Right.
Acupuncture. Mainstream medicine says, well, there's no double-blind studies, but it's worked for 3,000 years. That doesn't matter, right? I can't understand it. It's worked for 3,000 years. It keeps the better part of 3 billion people healthy, and yet we ignore it. Why?
Right. Okay, let me take you to, because our time is really up, but we just want to do a few more minutes and talk, because there are many other things that we've not touched about here. Again, at your website that I visited today, I saw hypothermia there, and I wanted to ask you one or two questions around that, particularly in relation to far infrared heat therapy or sauna or energy room. Would you like to talk about far infrared specifically, and then because there's a lot of debate around whether far infrared is healthy or is not healthy. Somebody still asked me that question earlier this week, and I wanted you to ask your opinion and your thoughts on far infrared specifically, and then hypothermia in general.
So again, many people have the all or nothing approach to things, not just medicine. So if you use medicine in right dosage, like cooking, if you use the right amount of spices, you come up with a really good soup. But if you decide that you're going to put in a ton of salt, it's usually inedible. And most people overdo things. So when you're talking about far infrared, we need to find out what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
This is the problem. People go to treat something they don't understand because they don't understand the problem. So far infrared is really great. You know, you want to detoxify, you've had too much to drink. It's a good way to sweat. You just want to just have a good sweat because sweating is good for the body. You want to elevate your core temperature a little bit. Far infrared is a wonderful concept. And in fact, you have a cold, sweating it out is a wonderful thing because viruses do not like heat. Viruses enjoy and thrive in cold. And so when a person goes, what they're trying to do is get their muscles to act to generate heat
in the
inside
core
the body. Your core temperature is dropped.
Right.
And so that favors viruses, which favors pathology. So what are you trying to achieve? That's the first thing, because I talk to a lot of people who tell me I was diagnosed with cancer and I've been doing blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying, what are you trying to achieve? What's the game plan? What's the lay of the land? What are you trying to achieve? What's it all look like? And a lot of the times they just don't have a plan because they don't understand the pathology. They don't understand how they got sick. Whatever your problem is, it's always your symptom. Okay? If you get hit because you jaywalk, you cross in the middle of the street and you break your leg because you got hit by a car, getting hit by the car is not the problem. That's the consequence. The problem is not walking at the end of the street where you're supposed to walk to cross the streets. So you need to understand the problem in order to figure out the solution. And so people come in here and they want to talk about different therapies. What do you use it for? And at least the way I have evolved, it's a question of what's your problem? What is it that you want me to try to understand so that I can explain to you some of the issues which may be relevant to you or not, so that you can change them. Because if you're just doing treatments because you just want to do treatments, right, then you're not going to get the results you want. So when someone wants to prevent disease, they want to maintain their body, I'm here for prevention. It usually takes about a week. They'll do some colon therapy, liver flush, gallbladder flush, some IVs, and they're gone until they have another problem. They're not here to do this every day. And so people start doing things every day and every day. And another misconception is that people believe that because they do exercise, they're healthy. So let me clarify. Exercise is good. If you do muscle strength, you'll be stronger. If you do stamina, you'll have more stamina. If you do aerobics, for example, okay? But it doesn't prevent illness.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but it's not a prevention. And people have been misled into believing that. And I see it every day. You know, the reality is that people believe that if they're told that they have cancer on Tuesday, that they were healthy on Monday. No, that's when someone finally told you that you've been unhealthy for months or years. So our perspective needs to be put into order. An important thing is that because most people believe that if they were told on Tuesday that they have cancer, that on Monday they were healthy, that means that they feel that they have a pressure to perform now. And I remind people, it usually takes months to get a final diagnosis for cancer. So, and cancer isn't shy. So if you live for months before you finally had your diagnosis, you haven't been healthy for at least months. So you have time to do research in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
There are exceptions, but we can go into that some other century. But my point being is that instead of looking at what do you do, what can I buy, as you would in a grocery store. And in fact, when you go to a grocery store, before you negotiate, you need to know what you're going to buy groceries to negotiate about.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the same thing. You need to understand what the issues, what do you want to fix? What do you want to prevent?
Right.
So that then we can go and say, you need this, and this. That's what you need for that. And that's why you need someone like me, because you're going to tell me what the issues are. I'm going to tell you how you can try to remedy them so that you can get better.
Thank you so very much. The time is really far gone. I wanted you to talk to us on so many other things that I read at your website. I read about that you address things like HIV/AIDS, and I was very interested in hearing your perspective on HIV/AIDS and other viruses in general, then hemorrhoids, dementia, medical weight loss, and what have you. So much to talk about. But time is not on our side. We've got to round it off here. One or two things I wanted to address in 1 minute, and that is number one, your parting word for our viewers. That's number one. Number two, to give us again your contact details, website, telephone number. And then number three, to also let our viewers know that when they come for consultation, you mentioned in last week that there could be free cancer consultation online, telephone consultation. I want you to clarify what you meant by that.
Everybody.
Okay.
People who have cancer, I want them not to have an obstacle to exposure to another form.
Okay.
Most of my patients have usually had chemo, radiation, and surgery and told to go home and die. And many of them get well, as you can see by going to the websites.
Wonderful. Right. So when they go to the website, they can actually see the link to click on to be able to get a free consultation with you for cancer.
Yes, they can call the clinic, 727-799-9060. They can apply through email if they want at the websites, either utopiacancercenter.com or utopiawellness.com. They can try to set up an appointment that way. But eventually, there's going to have to be a phone call made so that we can converse. You don't have to fly here just to sit with me, although you're welcome to do so. That's not prohibited. But these are important things that people should look at as many different perspectives as possible. Ask as many questions as you can. Do research. I understand that when people are diagnosed with a problem, they get scared. That's normal. But you have to either get a relative or an advocate to do the research for you so that you can learn about what's going on, so that you can help yourself. It's very important. In order to do that, as you say, you need to get an education. so that you begin to understand what is going on in your body so that you can help yourself. Because if you're scared, then you're acidic. You're not helping yourself. You're making yourself worse.
Thank you very much. So your parting word, please, before we sign off.
My patent work, I'm sorry.
Your last word for our audience.
My last. Be happy. You know what? Happy people don't get sick. Be happy.
You know, the Bible actually says that. It says laughter is as good as medicine. And
it is.
Joy
it's actually
of the Lord,
best medicine.
Yeah.
You know, you should always be happy. Whatever you do, be happy.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Garcia, for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how far we can go today on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, and this comes up every Monday, 8 p.m. West African time. Join us on YouTube, Facebook simultaneously. If you haven't done so already, we encourage you to please like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Dr. Garcia also has many uploaded YouTube videos at Utopia Wellness YouTube channel. We encourage you to visit there as well and get his book as well. And I think that's available on Amazon.com. You can get a copy on Amazon.com. That's Cancer is a Symptom. The real cause of cancer is now revealed. I got a copy of that book already. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you one more time. I'd like you to also raise your favorite emoji to say thank you to Dr. Garcia for giving us 2 episodes on Exposé. See you same time on the same platform next week. And you can also view past episodes of all our episodes on YouTube as well as on Facebook. Thank you. Have a very wonderful evening and a great week ahead of you. Bye-bye and God bless.
How far can you go on your own? How fast can you run on your own? We take you far. We take you high. We make it fast. Divine Impact Summit takes you far, gives you speed. DIS, where divinity meets humanity. Maranatha, the King is coming soon. DIS 2022.
Hi, Tony Akinyemi is my name, and I've written about 20 books to date. More are in the offing. Out of the 20 published books, to my credit, 6 of them are on healthy living. And I want to recommend these resources to you, to access them either digitally online or to get your hard copies. For digital access, you can visit Amazon.com or FamilyBooks.com. And for physical copies, you can visit the Shepherd stores at 18 Shogunle Street, Abule Onigbagbo off Mobolaji Bankantoni Way, between Eco Hospital and Sheraton Hotel Ikeja to obtain your copy. You can also contact the email address on the screen or the telephone number, or send a WhatsApp message, and you'll be guided as to where to get any of the copies. God bless you as you access these resources. They will inform you, and the information will help to transform your health and that of your family, as well as that of the people in your sphere of influence. God bless you and thank you.